Hey there. Ready to dive into some fascinating stuff about money and lifestyle? You've given us a really interesting mix. This time we've got classic financial advice right alongside stories from people who basically said nope to the usual way of working and living.
It's really exciting to dig into this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and today we're going way beyond those basic budgeting tips. We're really trying to figure out what it means to be financially savvy, but, maybe not in the way you'd think. We're going to uncover some hidden costs that we all kind of deal with, unlock the secret to feeling like we have enough, and discover how spending based on our values can actually lead to a richer life.
I like it. I like it.
And expert speakers here to help us connect the dots and find those aha moments.
I'm ready. It's never just about the numbers, is it? It's about how we think about money. Like our mindset around money shapes our choices, and that ultimately impacts, our happiness.
Totally. And one of the first things that really stood out to me from all this material was this idea of a real hourly wage. Have you ever even thought about that before?
I have, yeah.
Like not just looking at your paycheck, but thinking about all the hidden costs that come with your job.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you start to do that because we often get so focused on that paycheck number that we kind of forget about things like, okay, how long am I commuting every day just to get to work? What about the clothes I got to buy specifically for this job? Even those after-work drinks that, help you de-stress a little bit, suddenly that real wage, it starts to look a lot different.
Oh, 100%. It totally changes how you see things. Like, I know I started thinking about how much I spend on takeout coffees during those crazy work weeks. It's kind of embarrassing, actually.
Yeah, though.
The authors of Your Money or Your Life even talk about things like, would you actually wear those uncomfortable shoes or a tie every single day if you didn't have to for work?
Yeah, and it's not just the discomfort, right? Those are actual costs, both financially and when we think about our time and energy or, our life energy, as the book calls it.
Yeah.
It's like every time you buy something because of your job that you would normally buy, it's a trade-off, right? So calculating your real wage, it forces you to really think about that trade-off. Like, am I actually okay with what I'm giving up just to get this income?
Man, that question really hit me hard. It's like you're not just managing your money anymore. You're managing the super valuable resource, your time and energy. And it's speaking of really getting the most out of life, this whole idea of the fulfillment curve really clicked with me. It's this idea that spending beyond what we actually need, it doesn't really make us happier.
Yeah.
There's like a point where it stops making a difference.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's something people don't talk about enough. We live in a world that's constantly telling us we need more to be happy, but this fulfillment curve, it suggests something different.
Right. And they have this great story about a woman who basically had a closet overflowing with white sweaters.
Oh, wow.
Turns out her buying habit, it was really tied to this deeper insecurity about being financially stable.
That makes sense, though. That's what's so powerful about this whole concept. It encourages us to look beyond just like the surface level of what we're spending and really ask ourselves, okay, what am I actually trying to get by buying this? Is buying more stuff really the answer? Or am I avoiding something deeper here?
So how do we break free from that cycle? Because the book isn't all doom and gloom, right? Like it offers actual solutions.
Absolutely. Your money or your life.
Yeah.
It lays out this super detailed 9-step program. And it's not about like depriving yourself. It's about being intentional with your money and making choices that match your values. And it starts with something that sounds kind of simple, but can be really powerful. Keeping track of every cent that comes in and goes out.
Right. Step one, track that money like your life depends on it. I think they even suggested creating this huge visual wall chart to track your progress, which honestly sounds kind of fun. Way better than staring at a spreadsheet all day.
Right. Who doesn't love a good visual? Plus, when you see all those numbers laid out, it really hits you where your life energy is actually going.
Totally.
And that's just the beginning. So then it's like, okay, step 2. And this one's all about shifting your mindset. It's not about how much money did I make this month. It's more like how much of my life did I actually trade for this?
Yeah, it's intense when you really think about it.
Right.
But I get it. It's about really understanding what your time is worth and making sure those trade-offs you're making are actually worth it. It's not about feeling guilty. It's about being aware.
Yeah, exactly. And once you're really aware of where your money and your life energy are going, that's when you can start to be more intentional about the choices you're making.
Right.
Which brings us to step 3, where you actually start tracking your spending in detail, like really break it down into categories.
They call it creating a monthly tabulation, right? I love that.
Yeah, monthly tabulation.
And they're not messing around here. They want you to get super specific. It's not just like groceries or entertainment, you really got to break it down. Like, how much did you spend on those work lunches versus like those nice dinners out with friends on the weekend?
Exactly. And this is where it starts to get really interesting because, you start to see these patterns in your own spending, right?
Totally.
Maybe you'll be surprised by how much you're spending on takeout coffee or those little impulse buys when you're at the store.
Yeah. Or like the sweaters.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
the woman with all the white sweaters. You might uncover a whole spending habit that's actually tied to something deeper going on, like an emotional need.
Yeah. And those aha moments are huge, right? Like, that's where the real magic happens. That's when you can finally start making changes from a place of actually understanding yourself, not just like trying to cut yourself off from everything.
Absolutely. And what I love is that the book, like it gives you specific strategies for each of these steps.
Mm.
For example, in step 4, you're creating this visual representation of your income and your spending history, and they call it the wall chart. And this chart, it's like it becomes this powerful tool, right? Because you can visualize your progress, which helps you stay motivated on this whole journey towards, financial integrity.
Oh, I love that. They're big on making it visual because it's one thing to see a bunch of numbers in a spreadsheet, but when you can actually see your progress over time, laid out visually, it just feels way more real and actually achievable.
Totally, totally. And then as you keep moving through these steps, you start to question some of those deep-seated beliefs we all have about money and work. Those things we've internalized. The authors, they want us to identify our Gazingas pins, those things we spend money on without even thinking about it.
Ooh, yes, the Gazingas pins. This is so good.
Yeah.
It's like that feeling of, oh, I totally need to have the latest gadget, or everyone else is going on vacation, so I should too. Yes.
Even if it, totally blows our budget or it doesn't really line up with what we actually care about,
Yep.
I think we've all got a Gazingas pin or 2, or 10,
Totally.
hidden somewhere in our spending.
And recognizing those Gazingas pins, that's a huge step. It's like you can finally break free from those spending patterns that we've just kind of fallen into.
Yeah.
And actually start making choices based on our own values, not just what everyone else is doing.
That connects so well with the whole message about consumerism, right? Like we live in a world that's just constantly telling us that if we buy more, we'll be happy. It takes real effort to tune out all that noise and figure out what actually matters to us.
100%. And that's why it's so important to think critically, especially about our finances. Like the authors, they're really urging us to question all of those advertising messages, to challenge those ideas we have about what it means to be successful and happy, and really define those things for ourselves.
It's like, don't just accept the script that everyone else is reading from, right? Write your own.
And speaking of writing your own script, one of the most radical ideas from this book is this idea of like redefining work itself. It's not just about getting a better job. It's about really questioning what work even means.
It's a big shift in thinking for sure. They're challenging us to consider all the different things that bring us joy and fulfillment, regardless of whether or not they bring in a paycheck.
It really gets you thinking about all those things we do that don't really fit that typical work definition,
Yeah.
But they're still so valuable.
Yeah, for sure.
Volunteering, getting creative, spending time with the people we love, that kind of stuff. They might not put money in the bank, but they make life richer, you know what I mean? It's about recognizing that those activities matter, even though we still got to figure out the whole earning a living thing.
Exactly. And that's where their message about financial independence comes in. It's not about being like crazy rich. It's about having choices. Having enough money and freedom to design a life that actually reflects what you care about, whether that includes a traditional job or not.
I love that. They don't just throw this big idea of redefining work at you and then disappear. They actually give you like a roadmap to get to financial independence, which starts with understanding how powerful capital can be. Money, that makes more money, right?
Right. And they break it down so well, like all the different ways you can build capital investing in the stock market, maybe starting a business, even just making sure your savings account is earning a decent interest rate. They're big on being informed and making choices that work for your risk tolerance and your long-term goals.
Speaking of investing, I was super curious about their thoughts on building a diversified portfolio. They seem to be into a pretty conservative approach, emphasizing U.S. Treasury bonds, right?
Yeah, they definitely highlight Treasury bonds as a pretty safe and stable option, especially for people who don't want to take a lot of risks. But they also get that, like, times have changed since the book first came out. Inflation's a real thing these days, so they do look at other options like index funds, real estate, even investing in your own skills and education.
It's like they're saying, Don't put all your eggs in one basket, but also don't be afraid to see what's out there and find what works for you. Be informed and own your financial decisions, right?
Exactly.
Which is kind of what this whole deep dive has been about.
For sure. It's about realizing that being good with money, it's more than just how much you've got in your account. It's about understanding how you relate to money, making choices on purpose, and making sure your spending and earning line up with your values, your big picture hopes and dreams.
We covered so much today. It all started with that stack of sources you gave me about money and lifestyle. It's amazing how much there is to uncover.
Right.
So, expert speaker, if you had to boil it all down, just one piece of advice for someone who's just starting to think about their money and how to live a more fulfilling life, what would it be?
Honestly, don't be afraid to question everything. Like, challenge all those assumptions about money, work, success, all that stuff you've picked up from society, from your family, wherever. Once you start to see things with fresh eyes, you can start making decisions that feel right for you, not just what everyone else is telling you to do.
Man, that is such good advice. It's like you do you, but with your money and your life. I
Yeah.
love that. And a final thought for everyone out there to think about this week. If you didn't have to work for money, what would you spend your time doing? And how might that change how you see your spending habits right now? Until next time, keep asking those big questions, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.